The ocean, it covers, what, more than 70% of our planet. For as long as we've been around, it's been the source of our biggest adventures and our deepest mysteries. And today, we're going to cast off into some of the most chilling maritime legends of all time, the stories of ghost ships.
I mean, really think about it. What does happen when a massive ship is just found? Adrift on the open water, totally empty, no SOS call, no sign of a fight, just silence. It's the kind of thing that has stumped investigators and fueled nightmares for centuries.
So when we say ghost ship, we're not just talking about spooky folklore, right? We're talking about very real ships discovered under circumstances that are just baffling. We're going to dive into the case files of three of the most famous ones, the Mary Celeste, the Carol A. Deering, and the incredible SS Beishimo.
First up, we have to start with the legend, the one that started it all. The name Mary Celeste is basically shorthand for an unsolvable mystery, and you're about to see why. Okay, so the scene is set. November 1872. The Mary Celeste sails out of New York on what should have been a totally routine trip to Italy. But a month later, she's spotted just drifting, aimlessly, out near the Azores. When the crew of another ship finally got up the nerve to board her, what they found was a scene that was perfectly normal and at the same time deeply, deeply wrong. It was like a ship frozen in time.
Okay, so the scene they found on board was just eerie. The ship itself, totally seaworthy. Nothing wrong with it. They found a 6-month supply of food and water just sitting there. The cargo, a whole bunch of alcohol barrels, was completely untouched. And get this, the crew's personal stuff was still in their quarters. The last entry in the captain's log was from 10 days earlier and said nothing was wrong. It was like 10 people just vanished into thin air.
But in the middle of all that normalcy, one single, crucial thing was gone: the lifeboat. And that one missing piece, it changes everything. It tells us the crew wasn't taken by surprise. No, they chose to leave their ship.
And that leads to the one question that has just haunted people for over a century. Why on earth would an experienced crew abandon a perfectly good ship for a tiny lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? What could have possibly been so scary that that seemed like the better option? To this day, nobody has a clue.
You'd think the Mary Celeste was just a bizarre one-off event. But nope. Almost 50 years later, another ship did a vanishing act under freakishly similar circumstances, creating one of America's all-time greatest maritime puzzles, the Carol A. Deering.
So fast forward to late 1920. The Deering is heading home from South America. But in January of 1921, its journey comes to a sudden, very mysterious end. It was found smashed to pieces on the Diamond Shoals, a notoriously dangerous spot right off the coast of North Carolina.
When rescuers finally made it out to the wreck, the whole scene was just chilling. The ship was completely deserted, but its sails were still up, almost as if a phantom crew had deliberately steered it right onto the rocks. And the mystery just gets deeper when you go inside. In the ship's kitchen, the galley, rescuers found food that had been prepared for a meal, but was never eaten. It really suggests that whatever happened to the crew, it happened fast, right in the middle of a simple, everyday routine.
Now, unlike the Mary Celeste, on this ship, pretty much everything important was gone. The whole crew of 11 men, poof. The ship's logs, the one thing that could tell their story, gone. The navigational tools, both lifeboats, even their personal belongings. It was a total wipe.
Yeah, the investigation just hit a complete brick wall. People came up with all sorts of theories, everything from mutiny to pirates. Some even whispered about the Bermuda Triangle. But with the logbooks and instruments gone, the truth just went down with the crew. The final days of the Carol A. Deering are still a total blank page.
All right, our last story is maybe the strangest of them all. This is a tale of a ship that wasn't just found without its crew. This is a ship that became its own ghost, haunting the Arctic for decades. Let me introduce you to the SS Beishimo.
38 years. Just let that number sink in for a second. For almost 4 decades, this empty cargo ship drifted all by itself through one of the most brutal environments on the entire planet.
So here's how it went down. Back in 1931, the Beishimo got stuck fast in the Arctic ice. The crew, thinking the ship was about to be crushed, made the tough call to abandon it to save their own lives. But the Beishimo, well, she was a lot tougher than they thought. It broke free of the ice and started this unbelievable solo journey.
For the next 38 years, people kept spotting it, this ghost ship drifting through the frozen sea. The last time anyone confirmed seeing it was in 1969, and since then, nothing. Its final fate is one of the Arctic's greatest mysteries.
Over all that time, the ship really transformed from just an abandoned vessel into a true legend. Local Inuit hunters and explorers would tell stories about seeing the phantom ship of the Arctic, this silent wanderer in a world made of ice.
It's almost impossible to believe, right? How could an unmanned ship navigate ice fields, survive brutal storms? It endured those winters for longer than many ships even last with a full crew. The Beichimo's incredible resilience is just as much a mystery as where it finally ended up.
So what do we have? 3 ships from different times, different oceans, but all tied together by this unsettling silence. The Mary Celeste, the Deering, the Beichimo, they're not just weird stories. They tap into a really deep, basic fear we all have of the unknown.
And when you lay these cases side by side, some really spooky similarities pop out. The crews vanished, without a trace. The ships themselves, often found in perfectly good condition. And maybe most importantly, despite decades of theories, from the totally logical to the completely supernatural, not one of these mysteries has ever truly been solved. They stick with us because they're stories without an ending.
And I think ultimately, that's why we're still talking about them today. These ships are more than just tragedies. They are giant floating question marks. They remind us that no matter how much we think we know about our world, the ocean will always, always keep some of its secrets.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe the real power of these ghost ship stories isn't in finding the answer, but in the questions they make us ask about that huge, mysterious world that's still waiting just beyond the shore.